New cards being better than old cards is inevitable. New spaces in card design must be explored, lest the game becomes stale. Sometimes this is referred to as quote-unquote power creep, but such a term seems loaded. I would say that card design evolves instead as a result of pushing the limits of a card game's restrictions. Quote-unquote postmodern is only a useful term to us if we can use it as a point of comparison to the quote-unquote modern. I would argue that there are 5 historic card design spaces that indicate the trend of power in those times: base, archetypal, synergistic, modern, and now the postmodern. My name is Avery, and this is I suppose you could call it a sort of retrospective, sort of more of a discussion on the card design of Yu-Gi-Oh! And where it's headed into in today's age. My name is Avery LR32. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell for more. Without any further ado, let's dive in. While short-lived, base Yu-Gi-Oh! Card design is simple, with emphasis on developing monsters and attacking, a simple premise for a humble beginning. Monster cards are judged based on their ease of summon compared to their attack points, with a standout being Summon Skull. Similarly, high attack level 4 monsters are a staple as well. Spell cards at the time had narrow effects that either destroyed a particular type of card or increased attack points. Cards like Axe of Despair doubled as monster removal since you couldn't waste battle trap cards on just any monster. Until the advent of archetypes, decks were built with the cards that were the most efficient, but any form of incentive to play certain cards together was incidental at best. Then archetypes started appearing, cards with built-in incentive to play with each other. One of the first successful examples of this was Gravekeepers of all things, which created a mid-range core between Necro Valley, Gravekeeper's Chief, and especially Gravekeeper's Spy. This trend would continue with the benefits increasing, with the strongest archetype at this time being Six Samurai, a deck that actively rewards the player with card destruction when played together. I'll never forget my time at YCS Orlando in 2011 when I lost on the bubble, getting my 3rd loss, losing to a Gravekeeper player because they were absolutely abusing Royal Tribute, which was considered very broken and ban-worthy at the time when Six Samurai were Tier 1. A return to form, so to speak, to the base era, where cards are played together purposefully despite not sharing an archetype. While certain decks adhere to an archetype, such as Blackwing or Lightsworn, they only loosely gain effects by being used together. This type of deck building culminates into the fan favorite Dandy Warrior, which is our next point of topic here, which is synergistic, i.e. combining Dandelion with Quick Draw Synchron to synchro summon without needing a normal summon, which was considered very broken back in the time of especially Edison format. Generally, most decks can summon 1 or 2 2,000 plus attack monsters and destroy cards on the field. Card design of this era tends to create smaller monsters to make use of for synchro summoning. But now we move on to modern. Modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Begins to change the focus of gameplay from largely resource-based to being tempo-based. That is to say, your strategy should now develop a quote-unquote board or a set of monsters that can interrupt the opponent on their own turn while being able to break boards or remove threats to your establishing monsters. Card design of this era is extremely powerful, with cards like Zodiac Rapier allowing for game-breaking one-card combos. These combos differentiate themselves from powerful cards like Tour Guide from the Underworld because they create a board all by themselves, as opposed to a single point of interaction. The expectation of what one card does is higher now, meaning you can dedicate more cards in your deck to breaking the easily created field of monsters. And now we arrive into the future, or maybe some people would say that we are now in the new modern age with how many effects we have now, and the point of this whole video. Postmodern. Postmodern Yu-Gi-Oh! Design is a fairly new design space, with only a few decks having access to the cards that mark this era. Cards in the postmodern era are denoted by one of 2 factors: compressing multiple roles into one card, and or having 3 or more effects. Largely, these factors go hand in hand. The first card, I would argue, that has come of this era is Snake Eyes Poplar. This card is a self-starter, meaning that it special summons itself for the quaint condition that it is added to the hand. Second, it's an extender, adding the now banned original Simple Spoil Snake Eye to the hand to fetch Diabellstar the Black Witch, and so on and so forth. Finally, Poplar places a monster into the spell and trap zone, setting up for a future combo, and that card it places into the back row can also be itself. So a starter, extender, and grind resource for later. That's a lot for one card. In fact, future cards of this nature will be referred to as quote-unquote poplars, perfect example being Tenpai Dragon Genroku. Another example of a postmodern card is Lo, the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice, yet another monster that can special summon itself and gain resources. While Lo isn't as powerful as a combo starter as Poplar, it is stronger in the grind game department, being able to special summon herself as you naturally progress through the Voiceless Voice combos. The most modern example of postmodern card design is Maiden of White. While Blue Eyes is only considered high tier and not necessarily tier 0 and to some not even tier 1, Maiden of White is, in a vacuum, one of the most powerful Yu-Gi-Oh cards designed to date. Its first effect fetches True Light face up, skipping the trap card restriction of having to be set for a turn. Maiden alone changes the function of the entire card, essentially making True Light a continuous spell. Furthermore, Maiden can place True Light from the graveyard or hand. This effect has multiple ramifications. Maiden will never be a dead card. You either have True Light on the board, in which case your grind game is set, or Maiden can fetch True Light back. You can't even brick on the fucking Maiden if you draw True Light. She can place it from hand too. Maiden compresses the role of starter, extender, and grind resource in one effect. But she has more than one effect. When you summon Blue Eyes White Dragon, she summons herself back to the field. Then if she's targeted, she revives a Blue Eyes White Dragon or a level 1 Light Tuner from the graveyard. Maiden of White represents a whole dex strategy supplemented with one damn card, as opposed to the modern era where you still need to run cards to provide a grind game. Now, this comes to the question of what does postmodern card design do for the game? Well, as mentioned previously, this phenomenon is often referred to as power creep, but I think that this is generally a misnomer. The increasing power of cards isn't always a bad thing for balance or enjoyable gameplay per se, depending on who you ask. Having card rolls become compressed means running less engine pieces and being able to play more board breakers and or hand traps. While cards like Ash Blossom have less impact on an overall opposing strategy, you also get to play more of these cards. Now, with that being said, there is another side to that coin. Some decks, especially Tenpai, when they were at full power, hardly played any engine, meaning they had room for so much non-engine, whether it be a secondary engine in the form of Kashtira, like what I did in order to get 10th place at a regional, or now currently with Fiendsmith, or they could play a boatload of hand traps, which made the deck feel toxic to play against. Tenpai is actually a perfect example of why a deck not having a lot of engine cards and so much non-engine space can be a bad thing. Tenpai wants to go second, and so they can load up on quote-unquote turn-skip hand traps like the Mulch Armies and Dimension Shifter when it was at 3, and since the opponent will most likely be unable to play through those hand traps, the Tenpai player wins based on sheer luck and being able to do tens of thousands of damage with its combos. Let's look to the future with Yummy out of Justice Hunters. That deck has arguably the same, if not less, engine commitment than Tenpai. When looking at the OCG, they have so much space for non-engine that I can all but guarantee you when we get it here in the TCG, unlike the OCG, we will for sure be playing at least 20 hand traps, if not more. Even now with Mitsurugi consistently in top cuts of big events like a YCS or Nationals, decks will play 20 if not more hand traps just to have a good chance of seeing 2 to 3 hand traps with 1 or 2 engine cards, since you only need 1 card to combo off. Mitsurugi being a very good example here because it's the best deck of the format, I would argue, and because all the other decks want to try and compete with Mitsurugi or are Mitsurugi themselves, they're going to play 20 if not more hand traps just to have a good chance of seeing those. For now, postmodern card design seems to be having a slow rollout, again, depending on who you ask, with one of such cards gracing a deck at a time, at least it seems for now. It's exciting and, to others, frightening to think of whether the cards of the future will continue to gain unprecedented fourth effects, or if the quantity of postmodern cards and decks will increase. If you were to ask me, I will say that one day we will see really crazy fourth effects on cards. Maybe some people would argue we kind of already have that now in some. It's a big change from what we had in Edison or even, say, GOAT. But to some people, they like this change. I, for one, have been taking a break from this change because I'm tired of one-card combos being able to just vomit out an unbreakable board, which many would say that the Mitsurugi turn 1 board is basically an FTK because of this, what I'm calling postmodern card design. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, a like would be really appreciated. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Now that I've been taking a break from competitive play and been just chilling out, playing Edison with friends, I've had a lot more time to write out these scripts, do some research into card design, and to make these more extended discussion-esque videos instead of just turning on my camera, recording, and talking about the format. Guys, let me know what you think down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.